Welcome to Health and Self-Care for Women Summit. And my name is Angie, I'm your host. And today I will be interviewing Debra Atkinson, who is a hormone balancing fitness expert. And she has helped 150,000 women flip their second half with energy and vitality. She's the author of You Still Got It, Girl, the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women, Navigating Fitness After 50, and Hot Not Battered. Debra hosts Flipping 50 TV and the Flipping 50 podcast and AARP Top Podcast for adults over 50. So welcome, Debra.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I want to dive in right away because exercise is such a hot topic, especially for women after 50.
Yeah.
So why should we question everything about exercise and what kind of exercise we should choose, especially after 50, since our body is changing?
Definitely. Well, here's the biggest reason is that science has changed so much, from what we learned but I would say when we were very impressionable, and things stick with you when you're, late teens and you're a young adult and you learn things, even though you may have looked away and you may have thought, okay, well, I'm fit without being too active or very active. Or I'm very busy. So we're busy building careers, building families, driving the minivan, and then we look up and realize, this is not working as well as it was. So now I need to pay attention. But we tend to default to what we know. And, now it's 30 or more years old potentially.
Yeah.
And science has marched on, but we may not have. And so that in itself is different. There is a little bit more science. We know more about really what works and what didn't, even back then. And we really got lucky, potentially, more than we were smart. We already had the peak of our metabolism and muscle mass happens at about age 25. So we can kind of coast on that for a little while, especially if we're busy. And what we're busy doing, even if you feel like I had a sedentary job, I mean, sitting and, being at a keyboard is not an active job. We'd both agree that, but you're mentally active and that still requires calories. So if you go to a job every day and you were still in your late 20s or 30s, you're burning a lot of calories. It takes a lot to do brain power or body power, and definitely both. But as we, flip and we get into 40s, perimenopause, that kind of before it actually is menopause, can last 10 years.
Yeah.
It can start in late 30s or early 40s for some women. And, there's so much variability about that, but your hormones really change the game. So we need to change the strategy. And unfortunately, what a lot of women will do is do more of what's not working, right? And so I know that's kind of insanity. Saying it out loud makes it sound like, wait a minute, why would that work? And that's true, but it is what we do. We tend to beat ourselves up, feel guilty, and then go harder and longer to get better results. And that is not going to work. If you're not getting a little inkling that it's working, doing more of that thing is not going to help.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, we want to jump in and save all those women who are making themselves more tired and say there's a better way. You can feel better doing it. And it's not more exercise. It's actually less.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way when I tell my clients to exercise smarter than more. They're just like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, I've been running for so long, and I've been going to a CrossFit and I still cannot lose weight because I have this, belly here in front of me. And I'm like, yeah, you need to find a different exercise. So because of the hormones are changing. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
especially that CrossFit, women are just like, yeah, we need to go to CrossFit even if they're still like bleeding. Yes, they on their first day period and they go and they trying to exercise at CrossFit. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yes.
You just need to relax on that day, So just kind of
Yes.
listen to our body,
Yes, exactly. And there's so much variability between some women actually do feel stronger right before or once they get their period. They may feel more exhausted prior, but when they get their period and then that first 2 weeks after that, first 14 days, actually doing more strength can be beneficial and you actually feel better. So there's a lot of variability from one woman to the
Yeah,
next
exactly.
about what feels good. Yes. But, any kind of exercise, CrossFit is not necessarily the answer for everyone. And it's also not something I want to throw under the bus. I think
Yes.
any class that you do is it's really up to what's the quality of your instructor, the leader, and do they have eyes on you? Are they looking at how you're doing, how you're feeling when you come in the door, first of all, and then your form? And if you're getting feedback that's modified for your needs, then awesome, and you're feeling good when you go home, great. But I'm always afraid of what I call couch compensation. So if you're working so hard that the other 23 hours a day, you're kind of like, well, no, I worked out today. So, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to lay on the couch because I worked out today. It
Yeah.
actually works better the other way. If you don't work out, but you're active all day, that actually burns a total more calories, and it's not about just calorie in, calorie out. You're not an equation like that, but that's more beneficial to hormonal balance. Just that all day activity, what we call NEAT, non-exercise activity time, is very important. So when
Mhm.
you're choosing your exercise, you want to be sure that you feel like it's at this sweet spot. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's the Goldilocks where you feel like the whole rest of the day, I just want to be active because I'm feeling so good. My energy is so good. It's not about getting better at the gym. It's about getting better at life and being able to do all the things you want to do outside the gym, because that inside the gym lasts very, very short amount of time. You can only wear those Lululemons so long, right? And
Especially
love to
women.
Lululemon, right? I love her too. But
So we're talking about the hormones. So how does the hormones impact the exercise and, vice versa?
yeah, well, there are so many. So someone asked me the other day, do men have hormones too? And I said, yes, but they're just better behaved. There are fewer of them and they're better behaved. So we get the gift that just keeps giving. We do. But there are about, I used to talk about a dozen. There are really about 15 that are kind of signals and influencing or are influenced by exercise. It works both directions. So the biggest one to worry about is cortisol. We know that estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, those are the sex hormones that in our 40s start to change and they're going down, although you can still have some dominance in one way or the other. And that gets our attention because that's what makes us start feeling the difference in our potentially energy level or our ability to sleep or just our ability to handle stress. And it amplifies what wasn't going well with cortisol. So when you're kind of in that storm of perimenopause, and certainly the closer you get to actually menopause and you're maybe months into, it's been months since your last period, you'll notice a significant drop in estrogen. And that's where you'll probably begin to feel like, okay, I can't see muscle definition. I'm doing all this work and where's the muscle? It's kind of like, where's the beef used to be the thing. It's like, where's the muscle? There isn't any anymore. And that's a sign probably your estrogen is dropping, making it harder. And testosterone dropping, we didn't have as much of that as men to begin with. But, when we lose that little bit we did have, it makes it harder and harder for us to see more muscle. So whatever you're doing isn't working. If I had a dime for every time someone told me that, now what I'm doing is or what I used to do doesn't work for me anymore. That's just such a sad statement. But here's the good news. There's a solution to that. And it's really tuning into, any signal that you're getting that's not working. Let's look at what else is happening. Is it that you can't see the muscle mass, that Your skin is drier. You're seeing a little bit more wrinkles. Also, your skin is drier or crepey, and that's probably telling us that we're declining in testosterone, we're declining in growth hormone, and then we go say, okay, well, how was your sleep? And if that's a problem, that's going to prevent you from having those hormones that you need to have. So it's taking into account, what are your signs and your symptoms? Are you sleeping well? Are you dealing with stress well? Or do you feel like, no, you're flying off the handle, reacting as opposed to responding to things? That's not you. It's not your imagination. It's partially hormones to blame, but we also don't want to go there and just say, oh, it's hormones, I can't do anything about it. You can do everything about it. We can change the way that you exercise. So your signs and symptoms, plus looking at, how am I exercising now? That clearly isn't working. So having a starting point is nice, even if it's not working, because then you can say, okay, here's what I have been doing. It's not working. So what I'm going to do is shift and make one change at a time. And go back to 7th grade when you went to science and they taught you, change one variable at a time. And then we'll test it and we'll know for sure, if we see a change, that it's because of this. And that's the best way to approach your exercise. So if, let's say you go to Monday, Wednesday, Friday exercise classes and you're not seeing any results and you're exhausted, and those are maybe classes where you do cardio and you do strength training in them, it's the whole ball of wax, and you're exercising for about an hour, but you're exhausted. So clearly it's not giving you more energy. So let's maybe pull one out, do Monday and do Friday. But when they go and do the conditioning work, let's work a little harder. So, instead of picking up those 3-pound dumbbells, pick up 5s or 8s. So you're going to work a little harder and actually get to muscular fatigue. So that may sound funny when we're saying, I'm already exhausted, why would you push me to fatigue?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it takes to actually get the muscle the overload, right, that it needs so that we can progress. And those little changes are kind of saying, okay, I've got clues. My body's telling me messages all the time that this is not working. Here's what I was doing. I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to do that for a week or 2 weeks and then see how my body responds. And then I'll make the next adjustment based on that. So that's kind of how we interpret and use them. Um, and we always want to pay attention to cortisol. It's always pulling the shots, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I feel like cortisol just goes both ways because, if you exercise properly, you lower your cortisol, yeah. But if you
Yes.
exercise too much, you increase your cortisol, and that's put too much
Yes.
stress on our body and steals all the hormone we need for
Yes.
our body. So, yeah.
That is exactly right. So I'll tell a really short personal story. So this past weekend, I had a big presentation, not until late on Sunday afternoon. And, I had to be there by Friday night. So I'd flown in. I was there all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and yet I was the very last speaker. And it was a little intense. It's kind
Yeah.
of like being that basketball player on the free throw line for a really long time, and both mornings on Saturday and Sunday, I got up to do some exercise, but I was already fairly stressed, right? And kind of running on adrenaline for this event. So I kept the exercise very short, but it was also very intense, so that I was indeed purging a little bit of that adrenaline and that too much cortisol, but amplifying just enough so that for the rest of the day, I had better energy than if I would have chosen not to exercise. And that's a perfect example. Life is a workout. And we sometimes forget that, okay, we got to factor that in. So we don't just want to write out the plan and then ignore what happened. If you had a really stressful day, then potentially you want to modify and maybe do a shorter workout or a slightly less strenuous workout to balance that out, and you'll feel better tomorrow for having done it.
Yeah, right. I agree. So would you say that like strength building exercise, like lifting weight, is the one of the best exercises for women after 50?
I would say if you're not doing that, sister, you better start doing that. Yeah. Yes. If you want to maintain that lean muscle, and I would tell everyone listening that you absolutely do, right? So if you want to avoid fat, and I think everybody would agree, yes, I want to do that, then you want to hang on to that lean muscle because even by default, if your weight doesn't change and you're losing muscle
Yeah.
from that age of 25 when we peaked, we lose it a lot easier than we gain it. And that doesn't mean you have to lose it. It just means if you're not doing resistance training, you can't outrun muscle loss. You can't out Zumba muscle loss. You can't bar class, right? You actually need resistance training with enough overload to work those muscles.
Yeah,
And so,
because
yeah,
it's super important for our bonds too.
bones and muscle
Our bonds.
and brain,
Yeah, exactly.
depression, anxiety, it's so good
Mhm.
for everything. And so if anybody is watching and you're like, I, haven't bonded yet with exercise, first of all, you got to get on that. And sometimes strength training is an easier way to get started because you don't actually have to sweat, and you don't necessarily have to get as breathless. And for those who, don't love exercise, you haven't bonded with it yet, strength training can be a good way to stick your toe in the water,
Mhm.
just start with some walking in addition to that.
Mhm. Do you so how we can alter our exercise to balance our hormones?
So altering your exercise to balance the hormones, number one, is all about less, and less exercise, but just better. So I think you opened up and said the same thing. So it's looking at short interval training. So my prescription, if everything was, I could wave a magic ball and see everyone out there, and of course I can't. So you've got to take into account, how am I feeling right now? What do I need to do right now? But look at what you're currently doing and how well do you fit this. I always say 1 to 2 interval training sessions a week, and keep them fairly short. They're 20 to 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but the actual interval session piece is just in the middle, anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And then you're doing 2 strength training sessions a week, not 3, 2, and more rest between. And that's something a lot of people will forget as they age, and especially if we're like in a hurry to lose weight, we tend to think more exercise more frequently, and we forget that what we're pushing out of the picture is rest and recovery. And it's important to remember this. The exercise makes fitness possible. It's the recovery and rest between exercise sessions where fitness occurs. So
Mhm.
that's when your muscles are healing, repairing after exercise, and it's where you get stronger from that last workout. And you can't get stronger and repair those muscles without the rest between. So do strength training, 1 to 2 interval training, and then you're looking at maybe one longer endurance exercise where that's very low. So if you love to walk, it might be a long walk. It might be a long bike ride. It might be a hike in beautiful Boulder, Colorado, right? It might be all day downhill skiing even, or cross country. So a little bit more vigorous, but it's something that you can do for hours, and it's very enjoyable for you. And that's another key, is getting outside. So that's a big piece of hormone balance as well. Getting forest bathing, by being out in the green or the white, if you are skiing. But those types of things are much more hormone balancing. And if you happen to be doing that, you're reflecting on, okay, well, my calendar looks a lot like that, but I'm not getting progress, or I'm still exhausted, then you really come back off of that and maybe just do a week where you're only doing walking, light walking, not for speed, not for breathlessness or heart rate, but you're actually just doing it to reset your hormones. Walking can be excellent for decreasing cortisol,
Mhm.
but there's also a big difference between where you do it. So if we could do it, all do it in Boulder, Colorado. If you were going to invite us all over, that would be the nice thing to do. That would be, the ideal. But if you're living in a city, in an urban area,
Mhm.
there is a difference between walking in the city on sidewalks and pavement near buildings versus finding some green,
Yeah.
finding some park. And there's an advantage in the cortisol level of those people who walk in the green areas and spaces versus the sidewalks and the cement and concrete was better. So even though they were both in the city, it's just that, getting in touch with any greenery that you can. So, and if that's not possible, it's not, but do the best you can in the location that you're at.
Yeah, I agree. I feel very grateful for what
Yes.
you said. So do you have any advice for women who are actually, always super busy and then they have kids and they have work and they have to take care of the house? Like, how can they get more exercise? And because they always say, I don't even have half an hour a day to do this and that. So how can they get their exercise in?
Yes. Well, I'm going to go back to, so in your question, you said, how can I get more exercise? And they may not need more exercise. So,
Mhm.
I know that's a tricky default that we all go to, but, looking at what are you doing and how can you fit in just more movement because you're busy all
Yeah.
day and realizing mentally that being busy actually may be saving you because you're so busy,
Hmm.
and if you've got a high stress level because you're making lots of decisions either at work and at home, that takes a lot of brain power, then you may need something more soothing, and rest may be the best thing for you, and realize you are getting exercise. So in a study that Dr. Ellen Langer out of Harvard did years ago, before anybody was talking about mindfulness, she did a study with a student of hers at the time, Alicia Crum, on hotel maids. And they took hotel maids from all over the United States and divided them into two groups. They told all of them, you should exercise. Exercise is good for health, and it will decrease your risk of disease and improve your blood pressure and cholesterol, and all the benefits of exercise. So I don't need to preach to all of you about what you can get from it. But then they split them in half, and they continued to give one group messages through a poster that they saw in their break room that really you need to be getting exercise on a daily basis. The other group, they took them aside and said, cleaning 8 rooms a day, which is what the average hotel maid does, who knew, qualifies as exercise.
Well,
What
yeah.
you're doing qualifies. It is enough. And so they, at the end of 4 weeks, just 4 weeks, neither group changed what they did physically or what they ate. But the group that was told that what they had been doing all along now actually was a benefit to them, and they learned all the benefits of exercise. After 4 weeks, that group did have better blood pressure, better cholesterol. They had lost weight. They even looked better, only because they changed their thought about what they were doing. So if you're a busy mom and you're thinking, I don't have 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I can't fit this in, or I don't have a half hour, 10 minutes could do it. So if you do have 10 minutes to get up just a little earlier and do 10 minutes of weight training or 10 minutes of intervals, is a great boost for fat burning, even that much. But if you don't, on those days, tell yourself, being busy, not on the couch eating bonbons, being busy, if that's your reason, may be just fine. You may be moving through your house and up and down and picking up things and putting kids into cars, and all of that may be enough movement to actually qualify for exercise. So let yourself off the hook a little bit and realize, there will come times, there may be times on the weekend when you can get more exercise and you can capitalize on those. But during the week when you're busy, worry less about it and reinforce the fact that you're doing everything you can.
Yeah, and mothers that just do so much, they
Yeah,
burn a lot of calories, like the maids at the hotel. I mean, that's a
right.
hard work.
Right. That's exactly right.
So, so that's one common myth of exercises in women that the more it's not better. Do you have another ones?
Definitely. So the other flip side is, we should all eat less, right? And, so that's the mantra, it's
Mhm.
for a long time that has been, exercise more and eat less. Well, what we've done at Flipping 50 is we've flipped that. It's exercise less and eat more. And then dot, 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 we have to make sure that better, right? So of the right kind and the right timing. But we just want to exercise smarter, but we also want to eat smarter. But many women are actually starving themselves. And we've got to make sure that we understand that you message your body, how much should I burn? When you feed it less, it will burn less. So you are actually dialing back your metabolism when you're eating too little.
Mhm.
So your body requires a lot of nutrients in order to function. And so you want to make sure that you're getting adequate calories and also adequate protein can be really important for women to hear because often that's cut out or there's a little dilemma right now, I think, for a lot of people about, well, meat is good, meat is bad, meat is good, meat is bad. And so I don't want to open up that conversation, but whether you get your protein from plants or you get it from animals, you need to get it because that's a building block of muscle. And so looking at when you're getting it so that each of 2 or 3 meals at least is a high protein based meal so that you can sustain the lean muscle tissue that you've got, repair it after you're exercising, and help yourself with satiety. So if you're hungry, you're more vulnerable, to the break room and, to somebody bringing in brownies or cookies, even if you've decided, no, 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 I've sworn those off, they look really good if you don't have that satiety and full factor going on for you. So making sure that you get enough calories of the right kind, get enough food so that you're satisfied, protein and fiber together are craving killers, and I like using cravings as clues. A lot of times they're just cluing us that we're not getting all of the micronutrients that we need, and your body will keep signaling you until you do get them. We often don't choose really well when we get those cravings, but it's actually messaging you to probably have more broccoli and asparagus, not the cookies.
Yeah, and really, not eating enough creates the blood sugar spikes. And, after that, we're even
Right.
more hungry than we were before. And
Yeah.
having a balanced blood sugar is super important for our hormones. So, yeah.
But we should say that again. I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of women find, okay, my blood sugar is going to spike if I have sugar, but they don't really understand that not eating also spikes the blood sugar. And that was brilliant that you said it. And I think a lot of listeners need to hear that, just have that reinforced that eating too little or eating too much can have the same effect on blood sugar. So you really, again, it's a Goldilocks, right? Got to find that sweet spot. Yep.
Well, great. This has been awesome. And do you have any gifts you want to share, or do you have something like a course or something you want to, and tell us about your website and where we can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me all the time hanging out at flipping50.com, and that's all words spelled out, no spaces. And yeah, absolutely. So if you're not exercising right now, I'd love to encourage listeners to exercise. You can do a 5-day flip with me is what I call it. So I'll send you
Mhm.
5 exercise videos. You get one to open every day. They're between 10 and 15 minutes long. So it's really kind of a no excuses workout. But in that, I also lay out the week. So you get an idea of how do I put in the cardio? How do I put in the strength training? And what's a recovery day look like? So you get a little core, a little bit of yoga and strength training as well as cardio in that. And just so you can get through 5 days and say, okay, I can do this. I've got time to do this. And you'll already feel better and more energetic.
Great.
Yeah.
And did you just recently do a TED Talk? You want to share something about that?
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. Yes, I did. So that was my big weekend. Yes. So my TED Talk was fantastic. I had flown all the way out to Reading, Pennsylvania, and did that out there. And I think the time is right now. I applied on a Thursday and I was selected and notified by Saturday. I think the topic is that hot that they realize there are a lot of women who are dealing with these issues, and it was targeting exactly what we're talking about today. Why everything women learned about exercise may be a lie, and that's strong language, but it may be wrong. And
Mhm.
that's what you need to kind of challenge everything about your exercise and realize if it's not making you feel better, why do we think that ultimately if we go through something that's making us feel bad all the way through that eventually somehow we're going to emerge and feel good? And that really doesn't make sense. So
Mhm.
make sure it's making you feel good while you're doing it, while you're in it. And then you've got good clues that you're going in the right direction, doing the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate that you're having me a guest on my summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.